So welcome everyone, and a special welcome to those who are new to our Tuesday evening class. Normally it's in two parts. We would do a little bit of meditation, about half an hour to start off with, and then we'll move on to have a little bit of a wisdom talk afterwards. So for those who are new to meditation, and there are a few who are new at least to this meditation technique today, I'd like to say that meditation is become very popular because it's offered as a way to reduce people's stress levels and anxiety problems, and perhaps just to give a little bit of peace of mind for those who find that their minds and their awareness are caught up with many busy distractions throughout the day. Sometimes we think of our mind as being like our brain or our nervous system, which would be very lucky for us because our brain is like stuck inside our body in a place that we can easily find it. But unfortunately our mind is like awareness that can be pulled out to things around us, especially the busy distractions which are competing for our awareness for every second of our days that we are awake. So we need to find a way to pull our awareness back inside our body to a place where it can become more peaceful again. And meditation offers a way to do this. And there are many different ways to meditate, but at the root of it is that it finds a way to bring our mind that is usually invisible back within the space of our body. A very common way to meditate is by using our breath, because our breath goes in and out inside of our body the whole time. And if we can manage to keep our awareness on our breath, then it will be inside our body for the whole time. We can keep our awareness from slipping away to other things. Yeah? Unfortunately, our breath is always on the move, so it's like trying to shoot at a moving target. Not very easy for those who are new to meditation. So generally what I recommend for those who are very new to meditation is to try to use some sort of picture in their mind instead. A picture? Such as, if you would like to think of something like a picture of the sun shining, can you think of that? Yeah? So you have that picture in your head. Maybe like a golden sun shining, maybe even like a smiley sun. And what you would do with this picture is not see it in the sky anymore, but bring it to a place inside yourself, down inside your tummy. Surprising? So all you need to do is take that picture and bring it inside your tummy. And there's a special place where, if you can get your picture to go to that point, then it will be especially peaceful for your mind. Of course, the mind will want to run off onto other things, but that's not a problem. Every time it runs off, like a monkey mind, you just bring it back again to the picture inside yourself again. The picture disappears, you can think of a new one. And you don't need to worry if the picture is not very clear, because sometimes the way we see with our mind starts out a little bit vague, a little bit fuzzy, but later on it will become clearer. So we don't need to worry if it's not clear right from the start. Okay? Some people, they are not very good with pictures. They prefer to have a feeling inside them. And some people say, I don't see the picture, but I can feel that there is a picture there. That's also fine. So if you're more of a touchy-feely person than a visual person, you can still use the sun, but it's like you feel the position of the sun inside you. And you don't need to worry too much if it's not exactly at that point. Anywhere inside you that feels comfortable is fine. Yeah? Some people have a problem with a lot of thoughts on their mind. And generally, if you don't encourage the thoughts, then they will quieten down and become less. Yeah? But for some people, they have so many thoughts on their mind, it's like the thoughts never stop. And if that's the case for you, especially in your meditation, you may need an additional thing which you're doing in your meditation, which is called repeating a mantra to yourself, which means hearing the sound of some words over and over again in your mind as if they are resonating from the same place inside you that you can see your picture. You could use any mantra you liked. A simple mantra might be brighter and brighter, clearer and clearer. You just hear the sound of those words. You don't say it out loud, because it'd be very embarrassing for everyone. Just hear the sound, brighter and brighter, clearer and clearer, or the traditional words from the tradition of meditation I'm teaching you today are the words you can see on the screen, the words Samma Arahang, which is an old Indian words for a pure state of mind achieved in the proper way, which is like a sort of little affirmation or an aspiration for us to lead our mind to a more peaceful place. Yeah? So that's only if you have so many thoughts, they don't become less when you ignore them. Okay? As for any meditation, generally the first 5 minutes of the meditation is spent getting our body comfortable and relaxing the whole of our body. Part of that is having a good meditation position, which for those of you sitting on a meditation mat is something called a half lotus position, which is sitting cross-legged with the right foot up on the calf of the left leg. Yeah? But if that's too uncomfortable for you, you can just sit in a looser variation of that posture. And the way to put our hands together is with the right hand on top of the left hand. The index finger of the right hand goes up against the thumb of the left hand. And our hands just rest palm upwards in our lap. If you're sitting on a chair, then you can place your hands in the same posture. But generally the way you sit should be fairly upright, not bolt upright, but just upright enough to breathe easily and also to find the center of your body easily. Yeah. And if you feel uncomfortable partway through, you can just adjust your position. You don't get any points deducted. Yeah. So are you comfortable now? Are you ready? We're going to sit for half an hour, okay? So see how that goes, especially for the youngsters. Yeah. So when you're ready, if you'd like to find a comfortable position for yourself in the meditation, you might like to sit cross-legged, or just sitting with your back straight if you are sitting on a chair. And close your eyes very gently. Breathe deeply to yourself to allow your body to become quite still and begin to relax. You might like to become aware of any tension that you are still holding on to in any part of your body. And at this point you can notice that tension and slowly release it. Often what we do at the beginning of any meditation is to scan down through our body, relaxing the tension in any muscles in our body. So we start at the top of our head, relaxing our entire scalp, allowing the tension to float away. We may feel that lightness and relaxation coming down over our entire scalp. In the same way, we allow our forehead to relax. We can relax our eyes and the tiny muscles around our eyes. We allow the whole of our face to relax, whether it be our cheeks, our jaw, or the whole of our face. And we make sure that we're not inadvertently pulling a face. We move our attention on down to our neck, releasing any tension that we're holding there, and then relaxing all the muscles of our neck until they're completely relaxed. You may feel as if the tension is just melting away. And then we allow the relaxation to continue on down through our shoulders, melting away any tension that keeps us from total relaxation. Relax the muscles of our arms, our forearms, and our hands and fingers, so that the way our hands rest in our lap is as light and gentle as possible. We continue by relaxing our torso, whether it be our chest, our trunk, our tummy, and then continue with that tide of relaxation down through our hips, into our legs, all the way down to our feet and our toes, until we feel satisfied with how comfortable our entire body has become, until it's almost as if our whole body seems to have disappeared or melted away into the atmosphere around us. And this allows us to turn our attention instead to the feeling inside us, the sense of warmth or well-being inside our body, which by any other name we could call our state of mind. And our mind also needs to be as relaxed as possible. The way to do that is by letting go of any uncertainties or worries that we're holding in our mind, allowing them to come up into consciousness one by one and then letting go of them, whether it be our thoughts or our feelings. We might notice how effortless it is to let go of them without feeling any sort of regret. We let all the thoughts go as we sink deeper and deeper into a loving, warm abyss of relaxation, freeing ourselves from the burden of any difficulties in our lives as we move towards a sense of freedom. So we can imagine that inside ourselves that we feel light, peaceful and calm, clearing our mind little by little, in keeping with the relaxation of our body. A state of peace both in body and mind, and a sense of focus in the here and now, allowing us to reach a profound state of rest in a short period of time. So we allow ourselves to sink deeper and deeper into a profound sense of rest and relaxation, beginning to let go, deeper and deeper, more and more relaxed, down into serene relaxation, letting go of all concerns, focusing on feeling free, deeper and deeper, to the deepest level of relaxation that you can possibly achieve today. And with this perfectly relaxed state which we've now achieved, it will be much easier for us to embark on meditation this time and every time that we meditate from now on. So in our usual way, we imagine that inside our body is just an empty space or a hollow cavity with no organs or tissues, muscles or bones, or like a hollow space inside us. And in our mind, we conjure up a feeling of the positive energy in our life, or a feeling of empty space within us. But in this case, it's filled up with tiny particles of happiness and joy. And inside that empty space of our body, we can cast our imagination back to that imaginary object that we had a few moments ago, a picture such as that of the sun shining. But this time, instead of it being in the sky, it appears in miniature inside the space of our body, shining with a cool, clear light, maybe golden, yellow, red or white in color, maybe sparkling like a diamond, or it may be more of a feeling than a picture. Every person is going to be a little bit different. So we have to accept what it is for us, our own personal inner picture for us to work with. There's no need for us to compare with what we'd like it to be or how anyone else's picture might be. Whatever it is for us, then that's what we're going to work with. And in this case, we allow the picture to float slowly downwards inside us until it comes to rest somewhere around about the very center of our body. Somewhere around about the point inside us where the breath turns around between coming in and going out. In the meantime, if anything distracts our attention away, we just bring our attention back to this central point each time. If the picture or feeling disappears, then we can just conjure up a new one. And if the thoughts return, we do our best to ignore them. If the thoughts are at a low level, we can do our best just to ignore them, to starve them of attention, in the hope that they will die down by themselves into silence. But if the thoughts are too many simply to ignore, then we may need to make use of that traditional mantra, hearing the sound of the words Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, coming up as if from the very center of our body. If these words are too complex for you, you might use something simpler like brighter and brighter, clearer and clearer. Brighter and brighter, clearer and clearer. And the whole of the time we acknowledge the positive feelings that come up as a result of our cultivation of mind at the center of the body. Because this special place inside us where we are focusing our mind very gently is a place from which we can derive a special sort of inner knowing, a special sort of appreciation of the good qualities within ourselves, of the extraordinary and unique virtues and values which we have inside ourselves. And part of what we do with meditation is to magnify and multiply the good qualities that we have within ourselves. At the very least, we can magnify and multiply how we feel about ourselves in a more positive way, and to appreciate more than before how much we have to offer the world. If we are able to appreciate our own potential and love ourselves completely, we'll be able to turn into the person that we truly are in life. Turn things around with a new feeling of peace and happiness, putting our past behind us and making ourselves ready for something new and exciting in our lives. New opportunities and a happiness as we start to put ourselves in touch with our own potential and beauty, as we live our lives in an authentic way, being more comfortable with ourselves, and realizing that we don't have to try to be someone who we're not. We can open ourselves up to new opportunities and blessings in life, and a sense of happiness that comes from within, rather than from the things in the outside world. So we don't let our past hold us prisoner, but we can switch up to a new future of happiness and joy and abundance, generated by a sense of positive energy, of wholesome thoughts, speech and action, otherwise known as positive energy or merit in our lives, that is generated by all the choices for the best things in our lives. So now for a few moments in silence we cultivate our mind at the center of our body. If our mind wanders off, we bring it back each time, even if it's 100 times or 1,000 times. Little by little our mind will start to establish itself at the center of ourselves more and more naturally. If our inner object disappears, we can think of a new one. If it changes, we just follow it in its new form. If we feel uncomfortable, we can adjust our position to get more comfortable. And otherwise, we just place our mind lightly and gently, with nothing more than a feather-light touch at the center of ourselves, just for a few more moments now in silence until we come to the appropriate time. Continue to keep our mind on track at the center of our body the whole of the time. Lightly, gently, with nothing more than a feather-light touch at the center of ourselves. Always with our inner picture or feeling inside ourselves. And if our mind should wander away, then we just bring it back each time. Our inner picture or feeling disappears, we can conjure up a new one. If it changes, we just follow it in its new form. And it's true that if we cultivate our mind at the center of our body little by little, we change who we really are at our core. And if we direct our mind in a positive way, it's possible for us to reach towards being our best possible self. But it's important for us to nurture good affirmations in our mind, positive wishes for ourselves and for those around us. Sometimes we do this in terms of loving kindness, which means reaching out to others with compassion, compassion towards ourselves, compassion towards others. But another way of reaching out in a positive way is to reach out in terms of a sense of betterment, personal improvement, spiritual transformation, and by planting the seeds of positive affirmations in our mind, and those affirmations will gradually come to fruition. So we might plant seeds of positive affirmations in our minds, such as moving past any previous mistakes in our lives and being able to learn from them easily. Releasing ourselves from any negative thoughts in our lives and moving forward beyond them into a brighter future. Being more in control of our life, being more in control of our life and our own experiences, always being attentive to our own thoughts and choosing them wisely, and being in control of how we relax, being in control of how we react to what life throws at us. And realizing that to a certain extent, happiness in our lives is a choice, and a choice that we can choose from wisely. Releasing ourselves from lethargy or negative thinking or even lazy habits. And we might top up our own spiritual quest with the wish that we find time each day for quiet contemplation, to restore and to renew ourselves, and to be able to spend a little time each day connecting to this wise inner part of ourselves and the stillness within, to allow us to remain perfectly aligned with what is truly important in our lives. And reflecting on these positive affirmations, we allow our heart and our mind to be filled with compassion that reaches out to the whole of ourselves, reaches out beyond ourselves, to our families, to our homes, to our colleagues, to our whole neighborhood and our municipality, reaching out in ever-widening circles around us to all sentient beings, those that we can see or those that we are unable to see. And we allow positive affirmations to resonate in our heart with the wish that we'll be encircled with love, peace, and wisdom in our lives, surrounded by loving, caring friends and family, attracting good and positive things into our lives, with the intention to add value to the lives of those around us and bring joy and fulfillment to others. May we be able to feel gratitude for the people and experiences in our lives, and that this gratitude becomes steadfast. And we allow the positive energy to spill over into the people around us, just like our loving kindness, until the whole of our world will become a better place as a result. Because if no single person ever thought of anything but their own selfish desires, then the future of the world will be hard to improve. But if each of us cultivates the best in our lives, chooses the best of intentions, words and actions, before long the world will be turned around into a place that's more welcoming, abundant with opportunities, even for those around us who have less knowledge about the merit energy than ourselves. So for now we focus on our meditation in this way, making our own good wishes for ourselves and others for the last few moments of our meditation together, until we come to the appropriate time. Sape Buddha Palapata Pace Kananjayam Balang Arahantananja Tejena Rakam Bandami Sapaso Sapaputanupavena Sapatammanupavena Sapasankhanupavena Sata Soti Bhavantu Te. So if you'd like to come to the end of your meditation for this evening, you can gradually open your eyes again. If you feel at all uncomfortable, then slowly try changing to a more comfortable position before slowly finishing your meditation for today. Very well done, everyone, especially those in the front row. It's usually a little bit longer a meditation than I would expect for your age group. Normally if you take your age, that is how many minutes you should meditate. So I don't think you're 30 years old yet, right? But did you find you can do it? Something inside that you could look at when you had your eyes closed? ish, or something you can feel more than something you can see. Yeah, maybe even both. Yeah, so you can see how you can take that further if you can practice it. Yeah, grown-ups, okay? New folks, yeah. I have to sort of pitch it for the front row a little bit. So, if you are uncomfortable, you can always sit in a chair. And it's not about torture, yeah. But if not, then I will give a little bit of a talk. And today the talk is a continuation from where I left off, talking about special ways of being helpful to our extended family. And actually this time last week I already started out on this subject, and it is part of a sequence of talks which I've been giving about really ways in which we can become a pillar of society. The idea in this sequence of what are known as 38 blessings, which come from something called the Mangala Sutta in the Buddhist scriptures, is that if we can stand on our own 2 feet financially, then from there we can move on to work on things like harmony in our family life, looking after our children, looking after our parents, looking after our spouse. And once that is all properly in place, taken care of, maybe we can look further to reach out to other people beyond our family in the wider society to see what we can do to help them. But what I've been saying over the last few weeks is that it's not easy to be someone who does welfare work or reaches out to others beyond our family to help them. Because sometimes we can overstretch ourselves, sometimes we can be misunderstood by those who we are trying to help, and sometimes we can even be taken advantage of by those who we are trying to help. So we need to have a little bit more caution in the way that we reach out to others. Last time was mostly the good side of helping other people, and what I talked about was really the expectations of those who we are trying to help and trying to help them in an appropriate way. And the principle I gave was that mostly for our families, we would help them, our close family, in an unconditional sort of way. So if they need something, we will help them in every case. But for those who are in our extended family, what I proposed was that we can help them from time to time, when we can, or when it's a special occasion, in order to help them. But there are some cases where, although in Buddhist culture really we are generally quite soft-hearted, a little bit of a soft touch perhaps when helping other people, a little bit of the bleeding heart approach to a helping society, sometimes we tend to be kind to other people to a fault. And there's a sense in which we have to strike a balance with welfare work. And done in the wrong way, then welfare work can actually be a disadvantage to those even on the receiving end of the welfare. Don't look very convinced? Sometimes by trying to help people, we can make their problems worse if we are not careful. Not convinced? Well, there's a whole book about it. There's a book recently written, and it's not by someone who wants you not to be generous to other people, but it's someone who would prefer that the generosity you give to other people is given in the right sort of way. And the book is entitled Toxic Charity, because there are some statistics that especially welfare work in places like Africa from so-called wealthy countries. They've given more than $1 trillion in benevolent aid to Africa in the last 50 years. And in fact, if you look at the standard of living and quality of life of those living in Africa now and 50 years ago, you find in many places they are worse off than they were 50 years ago for all that spending. Pretty hard to believe, right? But rather than discouraging charity, what Mr. Robert Lupton, who wrote that book, said is that we ought to have certain principles which we try to follow when we are giving aid to others. Firstly, never to do for poor people what they have the capacity to do for themselves. Secondly, one-way giving should only be the standard practice in emergency situations. The third thing is that if people are poor, then the thing to do is not just to give them things, but to try to empower them to help themselves. Because that is somehow less patronizing, and it gives the people the pride of being able to help themselves for a change. Many of the foreign entities that give welfare work only do so because there's something in it for them business-wise. So they give lots of tractors to these poor farmers, but they have to get all the spares from their company, for example. So it's like good business for them to give the tractors to them in the first place, that sort of thing. So they should not be thinking about their self-interest when they are donating something in that way, but they need to listen instead to the needs of those who are being helped. And that means actually listening to those people who you are trying to help before you help them. I read some interesting things about what is known as appropriate economics for countries which are in transition. A lot of this comes from E.F. Schumacher and his idea of small is beautiful, which goes back a few years, but which is still being put into practice in the present day. And sometimes what people in a country in transition need is not some fancy new four-wheel drive to sort of burn up their muddy roads or whatever and create erosion. Actually, sometimes what people need is something much simpler. And to give an example, what the people already had is bicycles in a transitional country. They didn't actually want to learn to drive and have like big tractor-like vehicles to burn up their roads. All they wanted something simple like bicycles and places to mend them. So the bicycles worked. So they could use what they already had more efficiently. And then, you know what they wanted on the bicycle? This is like actually listening to them. Well, what they had, which they could sell in the market, is eggs. And the major problem which they had in life was that by the time they got the eggs to the market, they had all broken on the way. So what did they design? Firstly, bicycles and places to mend the bicycles. Secondly, they designed a special sort of box which they can put the eggs in, so that when they reach the end of the journey to the market, they were not all broken by the journey in between. So that people could actually have something to sell, and then they got the money from the sales, and they can stop being poor people. So the whole company is built up, firstly, many bicycles in order to make little boxes to put eggs in, so they didn't break during the journey. And from this, whole transformation has happened in that particular area which they were trying to help. So this is like an idea of appropriate technology for transitional countries. So actually during these 38 blessings, there's probably not another place where I'm going to be able to talk about welfare work. So may as well talk about it here. The real thing for understanding in especially more individualistic countries in the West is that in the West we tend to think in quite an individualistic sort of way. If anyone here has a chance to travel in somewhere like Asia, you will probably be very surprised by the amount of respect and hospitality which you receive from the people who you visit, which may be so great that it actually astounds you. You would never get such a good reception going around visiting countries in Europe, let's say. Because the whole idea of family for many Asian countries, especially the countries where Buddhism is dominant, is that it doesn't just restrict itself to your kids and your wife or husband. It extends to everyone possible who you can help out. Sometimes people have money and they don't even regard the money as their own, but they regard the money as belonging to their whole family. Because it's only through the help of their family that they got to a position where they can earn that money in the first place. So people actually feel quite embarrassed to have personal, individual riches. If someone gets successful in a family, then they feel it's their responsibility to give back. And even if you're a guest in an Asian home, not just Asia, also India or even in Latin America, if you're going to stay with the family, often the whole family will give up their bedroom and their bed and go and sleep on the floor so that the guest can sleep on the nice bed. That is like normal in Asia. This is like the sort of the whole outlook on life is very different from the individualistic West. But at the same time, this opens people up to a lot of suffering in the case that they are taken advantage of, because it's like a two-way street. You know, as a guest, it's very nice to have a comfortable place to stay, but you have to understand what goes on behind the scenes, that this whole system can be taken advantage of if you are not very careful indeed. To the point that I've heard some Thai people say, because they've been living in a place like England or USA for many years, they're now seen as the big rich member of the family who's going to come back home from time to time and just sort of give money to everyone. So you get a whole queue of people coming to them and asking for this and that, to the point that there's no way in the world they could possibly help all those members of their family. They never realized they had such a big family sometimes, because it's just like an endless queue of people asking for their help. The point that some people I know, they go back home, in secret. They don't dare to tell their family they are coming, because otherwise they're going to be met with a huge queue of people who are just going to be asking them for money for everything. From starting a business to buying a new minibus to helping out with this or that operation for relatives they've never met before, this sort of thing. So there's a balance somewhere. At the same time, there's this open-handedness, but at the same time, there's this sort of thing where you have limits on what you can help with as well. So where to draw the line? What happens if you get relatives turning up the door and asking for money from you? Well, apparently it's a subject which people enjoy looking at. Sometimes because it's a member of our family and they are in need, apparently, and they come looking for us, it's very tempting to try to help them as much as you can. However, we might be left feeling financially burdened by family members, and it may lead to painful conflicts arising, and ultimately it might not lead either to their ultimate well-being or to our ability to recover our financial standing either. So it's worth considering what alternatives are available rather than just pulling out our wallet. So 5 pieces of advice which are taken from a blog for a person who gets looked up by relatives on a regular basis is, firstly, you need to look at whether the person who's asking for the money has got a certain level of financial common sense themselves, which might be the reason that they're coming to ask you for money in the first place. If they haven't got that sense of common sense financially, then it may be something you can teach them. It's like, not in a Buddhist sense, of course, but instead of giving them the fish, you can teach them how to fish. Of course, in Buddhism, fishing is never good, okay. But the idea is to teach them how to be able to take responsibility, to empower them to help themselves in this respect, rather than to rely on other people. Second thing is, sometimes if you can't help them directly, you can introduce them to someone who can. Whether it's an employer or a person who can be a person who can give them a long-term fix rather than just something in the short term, which may be much more valuable than just a short-term loan or gift. Sometimes if you don't know anyone, you can offer them the opportunity to work for some money, or to you can maybe even offer to buy something of them, so that there's some sort of two-way involved, so that it's not somehow looking down on them to give them that money. If a person earns the money, they feel much differently about it than if it's just received as a gift. Yeah? It's like more dignified for that person to receive it in that way. Fourth thing might be to invest in them, which, if you're thinking about their potential or some sort of setting up a business of their own, then it might make sense to invest in what they're doing, rather than just giving a gift to them. And lastly, there's always the possibility to say no, which sometimes may not have occurred to you. If you can't say no, but you might not give it to them because you don't feel sorry for them, because they're obviously like messed up or something, but you might like help out their children, because the children are the ones who also ultimately suffer by buying something for their school equipment once a year or something like that. So with welfare work, and whether you're talking on a family level or on a national level, if you're the sort of humanitarian aid commissioner for a certain country, you need to make the same sort of decisions. You need to look and select who are likely to benefit from the things that you can help them with. And in this sense, those who are likely to be a good prospect for any help which you do decide to give would be those, firstly, who are already making an effort to visibly make an effort to help themselves. So what you're doing is only helping things which they are already doing to help themselves. A person is just going through a rough time at the moment, well, that's okay. But then there are certain people who are making no effort to help themselves, and they still want you to help them. And really that is likely not to make any difference at all. Especially people who they are so fussy about any job that they want to do that they won't do anything at all to help themselves. If they feel that certain sort of jobs are beneath them, even though they haven't got any money left, then maybe they need to change their way of thinking first. They won't do babysitting, they won't do home decorating or sell off excess stuff in their house, and yet they expect you to give them money. And that is generally a bad sign. And generally those who are grateful or considerate or courteous are generally better prospects than those who are likely to behave like they have a right to your help, or they feel come routinely asking for money. Those who probably you should avoid are those who are suffering from some sort of addiction, because that always adds a complication where you may end up the money being channeled into the addiction rather than helping them to get on their own feet. It's like you're enabling their addiction by helping them in many cases. Secondly, those who you've helped several times already and they still keep coming back means that they haven't really sorted out the long-term problems yet. We had a story last a couple of sessions ago about the drunk nephew who kept coming back for help from his uncle. First time the uncle helped him to the full. Second time he helped him with only half. Third time he gave him some new clothes, which the drunk still went off and sold in order to get money for alcohol. When he came back a fourth time, he kicked him out of the house, because it's like he's had his 3 chances already. Yeah. So sometimes 3 strikes is if you're feeling kind and benevolent, then give people 3 strikes. At least you've got 3 chances to see what they do with what you give them to help. So those who are unwilling to budget, or those with a blaming personality where what you help them with may come back to bite you, generally it's better not to go down that road in the first place. I have a little story, a true story, or at least true from the internet anyway. And for those who feel afraid to say no, you might use this as a sort of little example which you might help you to feel better about it. So there was a guy, his name was Marco, and he was between jobs somewhere in the United States, and all he needed really was $500 to tide him over. So he went to all the members of his family. He had 3 brothers, and they all turned their backs on him out of selfishness mostly, and they judged him because they were working, but he was not. And even though they knew that he had potential, and he was applying for jobs, and he even had 1 job lined up possibly in a month's time, they still didn't help him. So they all refused to help him. His own family refused him. So pretty bad, right? But it turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because he kept on going to college anyway with like what he'd already spent on his tuition fees, and eventually he could get a bachelor's degree out of that and qualified as a scientist. And 1 month after his graduation, he started his own research company. And in his first year, actually, he managed to earn back $500,000. And it turned out that since he had his newfound wealth, actually all his family members started treating him very differently from before. And they were now interested in him again. And they even came to him asking for handouts. And actually he could have avoided his family by hiding out in his lab. But his grandparents had taught him that 2 wrongs don't make a right. So one of Marco's brothers, one which he'd been asking for help from before, actually his brother had recently got $3,000 in child support arrears because he got laid off recently from a swanky trucking job, which he used to brag about. And that brother had a warrant on him, and he actually got arrested and he was sitting in prison with no one offering to bail him out. So this guy Marco, like the guy who'd been asking for help before, now he's much better place in life. he actually went to the child support offices, paid his brother's bill and court fees, and had him released. And his brother was really surprised that it was Marco who was the one to come and get him out, because he lived far away in another state. And when his brother asked him about this, all he could say to his brother was, "Mind how you treat me, because you may need me again someday." So sometimes no can be a blessing in disguise, but the best way of all is that if you still feel good about your family, then try to help them out where possible, especially where it's not just proving your point, but it's actually helping them to be in a better place. So the moral of the story is, try never to turn your back on your family. But if there is a problem with your family or a problem that they are experiencing, try to investigate the root cause before you decide how to help. And a relevant proverb is, love many, trust few, but always paddle your own canoe. Yes. Spiritual ways to look after your extended family. It's not all about money, but there are many spiritual ways in which you can reach out to others. Sometimes the gifts and positive things that we can give to our family, especially if we are someone who understands things like meditation or spiritual practice already, is to reach out to others with spiritual practice. And sometimes we may have relatives who maybe they're even quite wealthy, but their life still feels meaningless or hollow. We can help them by maybe facilitating them to have more spiritual activities in their lives. So it might mean taking them down to the meditation center, or encouraging them to keep the precepts, or to practice more generosity. Last but not least today, I'll finish with a short story from the life of the Buddha about when he did something to help his family out. And as we mentioned earlier, the Buddha was a part of a very big family. In fact, two very big families. One family was called the Shakyas and Shakyamuni. And on his mother's side was a different family completely, who was from the Korean kingdom. In fact, the Buddha did a lot to help out his family, and mostly it was to stop them having wars with one another. Well, maybe you don't have wars going on in your family, but there were apparently 3 times in the Buddha's life when he managed to intervene in such a way. Once was when there was a prince called Viduttappa, who was going to go back and get his own back on the Sakyans for treating him with conceit. I'll come back to that story a little bit later on in the blessings. But the Buddha tried to dissuade him from doing that. Another one was King Ajasatru, who tried to declare war on the Vajrayans, and again the Buddha advised against that. But the story I want to tell you today is a story about the river Rohini. And the story goes that on one side of the river lived the Sakyans, on the other side lived the Koleans. So one side of the river, his father's side of the family, the other side of the river, his mother's side of the family. And there was a particular time, maybe rather similar to our heat wave times today, when the river was at rather a low level. And because on both sides of the river, the farmers relied on the river water to irrigate their fields, there was not enough water to go around. So when there was a severe drought and the paddy fields were running dry, the farmers in both kingdoms wanted to divert the water into their own fields. And the farmers started to fight amongst one another. And once the farmers started fighting, then the armies got involved as well. And eventually, without a compromise, both sides were prepared to go to war about this. So the Buddha knew what was going on, and once he learned that he had relatives on both sides of the river, he decided to intervene to prevent unnecessary suffering. So actually he went alone to the middle of the river, and as they were preparing for battle, he intervened between the two sides. And seeing that he was there, then they put down their weapons before they got to use them. And the Buddha asked them a very poignant question: which one to you is more precious, the irrigation water or your own blood? And they said, I suppose our blood is more precious. So the Buddha said, for the sake of some water, which is of very little value, you should not destroy your lives, which are of much greater value. So why have you taken this unwholesome course of action? If I had not been here today, the blood would already be flowing, just as this river is flowing right now. You are living with hatred, but I am free of hatred. You are burdened by moral defilements, but I am free of moral defilements. You are striving to develop selfishness and enmity, but I am released from selfishness. So hearing his words, both sides became ashamed of their foolishness, and the bloodshed was averted. So maybe you can do one small part of that for your own families by intervening, even without spending any money at all, and creating a much better time for any opposing forces or squabbles in your family. For those of you who enjoyed meditation today, I would invite you to meditate further, and the best way to do that is to try to develop a daily practice of meditation, meditating at home at a time of day when for you is convenient, at the same time each day, maybe just for 20 minutes to start out with, or less if your children. Take your age and multiply that by the number of minutes, and you get about the right length of time for yourself. For grown-ups, they need to meditate much longer to get the same results. It might be first thing in the morning to give yourself a good start of the day. It might be last thing at night, especially if you have trouble getting to sleep. Or it may even be in your lunch break if you have a stressful job. Sometimes you can remember how to meditate, which is fine. If you can't remember how to meditate, you can download this app called MindGem onto your mobile phone, and it will give you audio tracks, like hundreds of them, different ones, which you can listen to as you're meditating, and you can even set a timer on that in order to meditate for the length of time you set for yourself. Generally, if you meditate at home, then you can count on about 7 days before you start getting lazy, at which point it's quite good to be part of a group where you can sort of boost your inspiration levels by meditating along with others. Here in Woking, we have meditations every Tuesday and Thursday evening. The only difference between the two evenings is that generally it's a slightly longer meditation on the Thursday evening. So 45 minutes as opposed to 30 minutes. Also, there is a meditation remnant from the pandemic, where on Saturdays there's a Zoom channel where you can meditate and hear a Dhamma teaching from the monks, and it's held European-wide. British time it's 7 to 8 p.m. Next Thursday, because it's the full moon, the start of the Buddhist Lent, then there will be a special teaching here and meditation, which probably will involve the lighting of candles of some sort. Maybe not those candles, but it's something to do with the Buddhist Lent candles. And my colleague, the Venerable Pisit, will be leading that one between 7 and 8:30. It will be held in person here, but also online for anyone who cannot attend in person. Last weekend we had great fun down Somerset Way. Just a little flavor of some of the meditation there, because we had such nice weather. Most of our meditations were outside, and we could actually do that without the sound of traffic and planes passing by. It was very rejuvenating to be able to sit outside and meditate. We do try to hold meditation retreats on weekends once every 3 months, and the dates for the next one, which you can put in your diary if you're interested, are the 16th to 18th of September. It will probably be held right here, and generally our accommodation is the 2 sides on the mezzanine floors you can see here with dormitories. Also coming up in August, we have for youngsters, for warriors, ordination scheme for 2 weeks between the 30th of July and the 14th of August. Usually the first week involves training oneself with 8 precepts, Atta Sila, and then the ordination itself, taking 10 precepts as novices, will take place on the first Sunday of the month, and then you are able to be a novice for a whole 7 days, just in time to go back to school afterwards. Ages 10 to 19 normally. At a pinch, anyone who is able to take their own shower without help from the teaching monks may be considered, even if you are under 10 years old. For the girls, we also have, during the vacation time, the training on 8 precepts, and it will be between the 26th and 28th of August. And we also take grown-ups as well, but all ladies together, and we'll have a separate room for the kids. Yeah. Also, I will say in advance that because we have quite a lot of trainings going on in August, the usual classes won't be held during the month of August. So Tuesday and Thursdays will be postponed until the start of September because of the residential courses going on here during that time. Yeah. So that's all I have to say, unless you have any questions, comments, or feedback at this point. May you all be blessed with happiness, success, and prosperity in life, doing extra well in school, and may you have wisdom and caution in equal measure in being able to help your extended family to reach the highest benefit in life.